Is that a quorum?
Yes.
18 is a quorum? But note that we have a quorum. Committee will come to order. At the conclusion of opening statements yesterday, the chair called up H.R. 3527, and the bill was opened for amendment at any point. So let me ask, and I would also just note that we're hoping that all of these bills can go without a recorded vote. There's nothing controversial, overly controversial that's here from discussions that have gone on both sides. So let me just ask if there are any bipartisan amendments to the bill, H.R. 3527. Seeing none, the chair now concurs on favorably reporting H.R. 3527 to the House. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. The chair now will call up the second bill, 1098, as amended by the Subcommittee on Health, and ask the clerk to report.
H.R. 1098, to amend the Public Health Service Act to reauthorize certain programs relating to traumatic brain injury and to trauma research.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. The bill will be open for amendment at any point so ordered. Are there any bipartisan amendments to this bill? Seeing none, are there any other amendments? Gentleman
Mr.
from
Chairman,
Pennsylvania.
can I move to strike the last word?
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I had stated in our markup and health subcommittee yesterday that I wanted to work to see if we can improve some things. It has to do with elements of this that fund organizations who actively get involved in some lobbying, but moreover, groups who will work, and I understand they're trying to help make sure that patients' rights are protected, they're not abused, but in some cases, and we had someone testify before our subcommittee on oversight and investigation, a case that occurred in Maine, where against the recommendations of the physician and against the request of the family, an advocate worked basically telling the patient what to say. They were discharged, and he went home and killed his mother with an axe. I'm still concerned that I just want to make sure. I know there was a manager's amendment put in the bill that asked for a report, and I just want to work between now and this comes to the floor, see if there's other clarifications we might put in there that would help us move forward, and so I just wanted to make sure we're working together.
Yeah, let me just say we're glad to work with you, and I imagine because all of these bills are going to go by voice that they're likely to be on the suspension calendar next year. And there's certainly an opportunity for, in essence, me to offer a manager's amendment under the rules of the House, and I would do so working with you as well as with the minority to make sure that we continue the bipartisanship that's there, but certainly give you that assurance as
Thank you. I appreciate the chairman and the ranking member for working with us on this.
I know that the bill won't be scheduled until next year, so I would suspect that in January or February we're likely to see the bill scheduled for floor debate. Are there other members would recognize the ranking member?
Strike the last word. I have been a strong supporter of the Traumatic Brain Injury, or TBI, program. I co-sponsored the legislation that first authorized the program in the 1990s, and I supported the program's reauthorization 5 years ago. TBI affects millions of Americans of all ages. It's a particularly concerning issue for our active duty military and returning veterans. As a representative of the nation's largest Veterans Affairs facility, the West Los Angeles VA Medical Center, TBI is one of many complex health problems affecting the veterans community served by this facility, which is why I'm especially pleased that the bill, as amended by the Health Subcommittee, includes a requirement that HHS update us on their work with the Department of Veterans Affairs and Defense to implement recommendations coordinating federal TBI efforts for current and former members of the military. Increased coordination will help us better understand the burden of TBI amongst military personnel, ensure our veterans know where they can access needed services, and advance research and prevention efforts. This legislation would not be possible, nor would any of the bills before us today, without the support of you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Pitts, Ranking Member Pallone, and I'd like to thank all of you for your efforts. I also want to acknowledge Congressman Pascrell's leadership on this particular bill, which has been essential to the process. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
Seek to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to express my support for H.R. 1098, a bill of my colleagues, Mr. Pascrell and Mr. Rooney. Traumatic brain injury can result in cognitive problems such as difficulty thinking, abnormal speech or language, and memory problems. TBI's effects on veterans and their families can be devastating. An increasing number of veterans are returning home each year from conflicts overseas, and far too many of them are suffering from traumatic brain injuries. We have to do everything we can to help ensure they receive treatment and care. Focusing on research and development, on diagnostic tools, and on treatment of TBI will greatly benefit our nation's heroes. I was proud to author a law in 2010 that created a committee on care of veterans with TBI at the Veterans Administration, whose mission it is to assess and analyze the needs of veterans with traumatic brain injuries, to make recommendations on improving treatments and improving VA efforts on this issue. The TBI Committee's efforts, combined with reauthorization of important research grants and investments and coordination between scientific agencies as a result of H.R. 1098, will continue to benefit veterans and others across the country and ensure that scientific and medical advancements will continue for years to come. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Are there other members wishing to offer an amendment? Seeing none, the question now occurs on favorably reporting H.R. 1098 as amended to the House. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. Chair now calls up H.R. 724 and asks the clerk to report.
H.R. 724, to amend the Clean Air Act to remove the requirement for dealer certification of new light-duty motor vehicles.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. The bill will be open for amendment at any point. So ordered. Are there any bipartisan amendments to the bill? Seeing none, are there any amendments to the bill? Seeing none, the question now occurs on favorably reporting H.R. 724 to the House. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. Chair would recognize Mr. Dingle.
For an inquiry, I'm assuming that there will be opportunity for the usual 2 days for members.
Absolutely. I would note that by unanimous consent yesterday, I reminded all members that their opening statements will be made part of the record, but yes, there will be opportunity at the conclusion of today's markup for a number of days for any members to make comments as part of the official committee report. And it's obvious that none of these bills will be scheduled for the House floor until next year. I would imagine because of the zero controversy with any of them that they're likely to be scheduled under suspension of the rules come January when we return.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm comforted.
Thank you. Chair would now call up H.R. 3683 and ask the clerk to report.
H.R. 3683, to amend the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007 to improve United States-Israel energy cooperation and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill will be open for amendment at any point. So ordered.
Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from New York.
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Both the Department of Energy and State have key roles in energy engagement abroad. The Secretary of State, of course, is the nation's diplomatic face abroad. The Department of Energy has strong technical and analytical abilities. And as the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and a member of this committee, I'm interested in ensuring the roles of each agency are protected and their strengths are utilized in accordance with the Department of Energy Organization Act. I'm concerned that this text before us might not reflect these considerations appropriately. So I'd like to commend you, Mr. Chairman, and also the ranking member for bringing this legislation forward. And I'd also like to ask if both of you would be willing to work with me to strike the right balance so that the roles of both agencies are respected in order to have the most effective legislation possible.
Would the gentleman yield?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Let me just say, I very much appreciate your leadership role as the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee. You've been a good friend, and you are in an appropriate spot, and appreciate that leadership and input. And I can absolutely assure you that I look forward to working with you to achieve these goals. And I yield back to the gentleman from New York.
Would the gentleman yield to me?
Yes, certainly.
I thank you for yielding. I also want to join in expressing support for achieving these goals as well. This bill is a worthwhile bill. It's a good bill. It's a bipartisan bill. It's important for our national interests to help Israel develop their natural resources in a responsible way. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I want to thank both the chair and the ranking member. I appreciate their help and their friendship very, very much, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman yields back. Are there any bipartisan amendments to the bill? Seeing none, are there any other amendments to the bill? Seeing none, the question now occurs on favorably reporting H.R. 3683 to the House. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. The chair now calls up H.R. 3675 and asks the clerk to report.
H.R. 3675, to amend the Communications Act of 1934 to provide for greater transparency and efficiency in the procedures followed by the Federal Communications Commission.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill will be open for amendment at any point so ordered.
Mr. Chairman?
Chair would, yes, recognize the gentleman from Oregon.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we have a bipartisan amendment at the desk.
All right, let me, clerk will report the bipartisan amendment.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 3675, offered by Mr. Walden.
Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes in support of his amendment.
I thank the chairman, and I thank my colleague, Ms. Eshu, and Mr. Waxman and their staffs and others who have worked on that on our side of the aisle as well. As you know, trying to get the FCC to be more transparent in its proceedings, to be available and open in terms of its rulemaking so that people know ahead of time how they operate, trying to clear up some of these dockets that have been pending forever, trying to bring some certainty to the process is something this your subcommittee on communications and technology has pursued for several years now. There are different ways to achieve the ultimate goal that I think all of us on the full committee and subcommittee share, which is to make sure that the public's business is done in a timely manner and in a public manner. And while we had different views about how to achieve that, we've come together in a bipartisan bill that really tells the Commission, heal thyself, and look at these issues that we believe are very important going forward. I've used as an example, in fact, I had a series of translator applications that had been pending for basically 10 years, and we'd sold the business in between, and then after the FCC finally approved them, they gave me 30 days to perfect them. And so, I mean, there are just some processes and timelines that need to be dealt with there. That wasn't the reason I got involved in all of this, other than just experience is important in this process. I'd forgotten I even had the applications pending, frankly, so we'd sold the business. But the long and the short of it is this amendment calls on the FCC to do the proposed rulemaking and all, and look at these issues that we've raised. Now, I've been encouraged because the new chairman of the FCC, Tom Wheeler, and I have met and talked. He's made reforming processes and procedures at the FCC a priority and has put one of his key staff people on a 60-day review. A lot of what we recommend here they could do. But the one thing they can't do is be able to meet and talk in a more productive way as commissioners. They call it sunshine. I'm not quite convinced that's the best title for it, but the long and the short is, if this bill becomes law, which I hope it does, that the Commission then, if it does what we ask them to do, will get this new authority that will also improve the way they can conduct their business. But it's sort of a carrot and stick, and we're going to move forward. So I commend my colleagues on the other side of the aisle for working with us on this. It's not everything I'd like to do, but I think it's a very solid, balanced compromise going forward. And with that, I would yield to the gentleman from California, Mr. Waxman.
Thank you very much for yielding to me. I want to thank you and Chairman Upton for working on a bipartisan basis to reach this compromise on the FCC Process Reform Act. I also want to commend Ranking Member Eshoo for her leadership. Last Congress, we were unable to reach consensus and the legislation foundered, but I'm hopeful that our ability to find common ground will change the result this year. In fact, our process on the FCC process bill should be a model of how this committee can operate. When we have serious bipartisan engagement, we can make progress. I support the legislation. I thank the gentleman for his leadership.
Well, reclaiming my time, I appreciate his comments, his work, and I would just amend his statement to say the legislation foundered in the Senate, as did our bill on consolidated reporting, which was fully bipartisan and I think passed unanimously in the House, and we've done that one again. We need to figure out at a minimum how to get that bill into law, because that does save the FCC a lot of time and energy. They still report on the important topics. They just don't have to do it the way they do today, and don't have to report on the telegraph anymore, too, if that becomes law. With that, I would either yield to the gentlelady from California or yield back.
I'd be happy to accept the time. Thank you, Mr. Walden, for your leadership, for your work, to all of the members of the subcommittee, and most especially to the staffs on both sides of the aisle. I said it yesterday when we opened the markup with our opening statements, and I couldn't mean it more. This has been around for 3 years, and I think that this is our best shot. I really do. I think that this is going to be a product that's going to move not only through the House, but my sense is that the Senate will not find different parts of it menacing. It's important because it's reforms. No one got everything that they wanted, but I think that we have an excellent package. I'm very pleased that the sunshine legislation that has been bipartisan from the get-go is included in it. I hope that when it gets over to the Senate, that they'll make sure that when the legislation becomes law, that this reform will take place right away, and that they won't have to wait yet another year. It's about the functioning of the FCC in the 21st century. So I'm pleased to support it. I'm pleased with the product, and I'm very grateful to all of the members for their participation in it over the 3 years, and most especially our respective staffs. They've just been terrific. So this is a nice Christmas present, I think. And with that, I'll yield back.
Time has expired. I'm going to just strike the last word for just a moment. I too want to thank both sides and be able to work together. I would note that tomorrow we have an important subcommittee hearing with all the FCC commissioners attending, including Tom Wheeler, the new chairman of the FCC, and I would like to think that they'll be favorably disposed at saying good things about this legislation as we move it through today and soon to get it on the House floor. And again, I appreciate you, Ms. Eshoo and Mr. Walden, and the great crew that we have to really put something together that's going to make a lot of sense, and yield back my time. The amendment offered by Mr. Walden is the pending vote. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. Are there further amendments to the bill? If there are not, the vote occurs on the bill as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the amendment and the bill as amended is agreed to. The next order of business, the chair would call up H.R. 3674 and ask the clerk to report.
H.R. 3674 to amend the National Telecommunications and Information Administration Organization Act to provide incentives for the reallocation of federal government spectrum for commercial use and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. The bill will be open for amendment at any point. So ordered. Are there any bipartisan amendments to the bill? Seeing none, are there any amendments to the bill? Gentleman from Kentucky
I'd like to move to strike the last word.
strikes last word. Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you including this bill in today's markup. And I apologize for not being here yesterday for opening statements. I was flight delays in the airport. Unfortunately, I apologize. But my colleague, Congresswoman Matsu, and I introduced H.R. 3674 and its legislation to expand incentive auction authority to federal spectrum. This bill would encourage agencies to relinquish some of the spectrum bands they currently hold and allows agencies to receive a portion of the auction proceeds. This legislation is critical to further address our nation's spectrum crunch. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I'd like to say how much I enjoy working with Congresswoman Matsui, my friend from California, on this bill and others that she's been the lead on and on the Federal Spectrum Working Group. It's been fun to work together. Would you like to yield?
Yes, would you yield,
Yeah,
please?
I'll yield.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with you also, and I obviously in strong support of this bill that Rep. Guthrie and I introduced, along with Chairman Walden, Ranking Members Waxman and Eshoo. It really is an outstanding bill. It's a product of bipartisan cooperation and leadership, and it's a first of its kind bipartisan legislation that really offers a new, fresh approach to spectrum management by implementing a voluntary federal spectrum incentive auction, similar to the broadcast incentive auction. And this is for the first time the bill will allow government agencies to receive money in exchange for this spectrum. And as we know, the U.S. government is the single largest spectrum user in the country. And this financial incentive will provide many of the government agencies with a deal that would be really hard to refuse, particularly as our nation's budget continues to shrink. And as Rep. Guthrie and I know, this is a win-win-win for consumers, for American ingenuity, and for the federal government. And it has been a pleasure working with you, and we both urged our colleagues to support this. And I yield back to you.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. I will yield to Ms. Eshoo.
I want to thank both Representatives Guthrie and Matsui. They've spoken beautifully about this, but the full committee really needs to fully appreciate how tough this was to do. I think there were an awful lot of people that were taking bets that no major agency in the federal government would give up a shred of spectrum regardless of what our call was. And these two members took it upon themselves to form the working group where they would sit and meet with the agencies, present the case very carefully, thread the needle, and the outcome is a great win. Now, we know that DOD holds some really valuable spectrum, and to their credit, to the members' credit, to DOD's credit, and to other agencies, they came along. They decided to be a partner in this effort. So I salute the members that are presenting the legislation, the members that were part of the working group. I think the subcommittee chairman and myself had a great idea about these working groups. And you know what? Yours really worked. So I salute you. I thank you. The American people are going to be winners in this, and the agencies are not going to be punished. They're part of the win in this as well. So kudos to you, and we're really proud and grateful to you for the work that you've done.
Thank you. Just before I yield back, it wouldn't have happened without the staffs from both of our offices working. They worked hard on it together, along with Energy and Commerce staff. So, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for making them available, and we appreciate the hard work they've done. Appreciate it. I'll yield back.
We all appreciate your
Would
good
the
work.
gentleman yield, Mr. Guthrie? For some complimentary comments from me, I just thought you might. Minute left. Yeah. Look, I just really want to thank our colleagues on the subcommittee, and especially Ms. Matsui and Mr. Guthrie. These work groups have been very effective. These issues are very difficult, complicated, technical, and I think it's really been a good venue to get the information we need and then help the rest of the sub and full committee figure out the best policy moving forward for the country. Spectrum is very valuable. The extent to which it's not fully utilized by the government, it should be freed up one way or another, leased or sold. And we need to provide a mechanism to encourage that in the government in a positive way, like you would in the private sector. And I think your bill certainly puts us on that path to do that. I'm delighted to support it. And I really appreciate the work that you all have done on this effort. I commend you for it. The country's better off as a result. And I'm glad that the chairman has allowed us to pursue this path and mark up this bill today. I yield back.
Committee yields back. Time has expired. Excuse me. Are there further amendments to the bill? Seeing none, the question now occurs on favorably reporting H.R. 3674 to the House. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Excuse me again. The bill is favor. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. Without objection, the staff is authorized to make technical and conforming changes to the bills, plural, reported by the committee today. So ordered. And without objection, the committee stands adjourned.